It's 2012. Miguel Ribeiro was listening to a story about heart surgery, and it isn't going well. He starts feeling nauseous and dizzy. There's no comfortable place to sit at this conference in Niagara Falls, so he hops on an elevator to go lay down in his room. When he leaves the elevator, his consciousness leaves him. On his way to the ground, Miguel's head crashes into a concrete wall. He wakes up to a life of pain, crippling anxiety, and changes he could never have imagined. Hi, I'm Craig Colby, owner of Colbyvision, a storytelling company where we make connections. This is The Business Heroes, a show where we talk to business owners about their journey. And this is Miguel Ribeiro, owner of VBS IT Services. Miguel, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Craig. Thanks for having me.
Well, you've got an incredible story, and we're going to hear all about it. But first, why don't you tell us a little bit about what your company does?
So VBS IT Services has been around since 2007, and I'm a business continuity and cybersecurity expert. We also do CRM, and our objective is to help organizations operate at peak performance in a safe manner so that they can maintain business as usual regardless of what happened. Which is ironic that here we are in a pandemic, and that's not always the case for everyone.
So it's a security company. It helps you operate at peak efficiency. And what else do you do?
So we do CRM implementations to help organizations essentially streamline their operations, automate their operations, and make sure that nothing falls between the cracks so that the customer journey from start to finish is seamless and always consistent.
And as you said, you also help people prepare for the worst that can happen in their business so they can, manage through no matter what.
That's correct. So a lot of people don't put much thought into business continuity. It's something that is kind of, not thought about, not planned for. And that's where we come in. We help organizations understand how to prepare for unexpected situations, impossible downtime, and how to respond to some of those occurrences that may happen down the road so that they can get back on track as quickly as possible.
Well, this is a very specific goal that you have. And where did your journey towards this start?
Very good question. I think it was basically a situation that occurred when I moved to Canada. I used to live in Angola in Africa. And when I came to Canada, we lost everything and had to start all over. And so that left an impression in me by, realizing that it could happen to anyone. And I vowed never to allow that to happen to myself or my family. So in everything that I do in my life, personal or business, I'm always looking for ways to ensure that, if the worst happens, that I can still continue business as usual. I can, help my family to survive the situation and ensure that, there's less disruption. And again, the pandemic is a good example. We have adapted to it very easily, more so than most, because we're a very agile company and we can do that.
And that's what you do. And I just showed this briefly before, but here is a picture of you back in Angola, correct?
Yes. And you're wondering, where's the little monkey? In front or back, right?
I just have to ask, what's the deal with the monkey?
Well, most kids have cats, dogs, or whatnot. I had all sorts of different animals. A monkey was just one of them. We also had a lion that my father captured and had been stranded, and he raised it and then eventually donated it to the zoo. We had parrots. We had all kinds of exotic animals, and it was just the nature of living in that kind of climate and environment.
So you talk about living with risk. You lived with a lion.
Yes.
And it was
Yeah.
walking. How big was the lion? It was walking around the house.
No, it was caged in the backyard, and back in those days, people didn't think about those sort of things. They,
Everybody's got a lion, right?
yeah, right.
Who are if you don't have a lion?
I was scared of. I was maybe 5 years old at the time, and I have a picture that unfortunately I couldn't find for you. But there's a picture of me and my father introducing me to this lion, and of course I'm trying to get away.
I'm sure that lion was very happy to see you.
Yeah.
So anyway, your dad makes what turns out to be a very prudent decision to come to Canada despite what he lost, because at least you don't have feline predators in the backyard every day. So you're in Canada. Your father has lost a lot. It's had a huge effect on you, and you're starting to get older, and you're starting to make plans for your life. What did you take in school to make sure that you wouldn't end up in this situation that you were afraid of?
Well, my family always focused on entrepreneurship and running a business. So I went down that road and took a business program and graduated with, a business degree. And after that, I went to work for an organization that manufactured metal components for the office furniture industry, and I was there for about 6 years, and I wasn't fulfilled. So I was looking for other opportunities, and eventually came about a discussion between my brother and my father, and we found another way for me to be happier, more fulfilled, which is to get into business.
And where did that inspiration come from? What the business I meant? What inspired you to get into the business you did?
So I had very little knowledge of technology, but I was intrigued by it, and I loved how software allowed you to do many different things. And my brother at the time had a small business that focused on building computers and also accounting software. So we decided to team up and start working together. And that all came about in on a vacation that we took many years ago in the Virgin Islands. We spent 10 days where we were just the three of us, my father, my brother, and I. We were all together, and we were talking about the future. And I felt, I needed to do something to change, my career. And that's where the conversation came up. My father actually suggested, he says, why don't you two work together? You can help with building the company. And so, we talked about a strategy, and out of that came a plan. And when we got back, well, I gave my resignation and started working with my brother.
Now, not everybody can do that.
No.
Brothers can be competitive even when they love each other. How did that play out?
We worked really well together for about 6 years, and then I think we just outgrew each other, and it was time to move on. I wanted to get into other fields at the time. Voice over IP was a really big thing, and I wanted to get into that industry, and so I found an opportunity and moved on.
So you had a business with your brother. You did well with it. You started your own business, another tech one. You learned all you could about tech, and you're pushing through that. And at the same time, what's going on in your personal life?
Well, I had a young child at the time. He was, I believe, 2 years old, and we had just moved into a new house. So we had a lot of change in a very short time. And here I am trying to adapt to being a solopreneur at the time. Just had started the business on my own with a cell phone and an email address and a website. And so I had a lot going on. I had a lot of pressure, and that was new to me. because I had become accustomed to having a very balanced lifestyle when my brother and I worked together. And so there was a lot of change going on, but you adapt and you find ways, and that's what I did.
And so you've got a family, you got a business, you're working how many hours a week to make this work?
At the time, I was working on average 80 hours a week, 7 days a week. And somehow I found ways to spend time with my family and to, enjoy life. But I do not condone, 80-hour weeks or what would be being an workaholic.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that that's a good lifestyle for anybody. I think you have to have some, some balance. And it's hard to say that anybody nowadays has balance in their life. But you do have to have a variety of different things going on in your life, not just focused on one thing, because that'll wear you out.
And speaking of balance and being worn out, let's talk about your conference in Niagara Falls. What happened there?
Well, you're bringing me back to very difficult times and memories. But what happened there was that I went to an IT conference, as I always did every single year. It's always a good way for you to learn and keep up. And in our industry, things change so rapidly. That's one of the ways that you keep up. So I show up at this conference, and after working so hard for so many years, I was a little burnt out, to tell the truth. And I'm at the conference. It's day one of the conference, and it's a 3-day conference. And I'm listening to a story of someone telling me how they went through heart surgery and how they put a camera up through their veins from their leg. And I started feeling a little nauseous. I don't do well with that sort of thing. And I mean, I know a lot of people don't, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I started feeling a little nauseous and decided that I needed to sit down, but there was nowhere to sit. It was a busy place. So I decided to go up to my room and rest. As I was coming out of the elevator, I blanked out, and my momentum carried me into a wall. And after that, my life changed dramatically. I didn't realize that at the time, but I had suffered a concussion. And
let me just stop for 1 second. So
sure.
you're coming out of the elevator, you fall, you hit the wall. What do you recall when you woke up?
Well, I was a little dizzy and whatnot, but I was conscious. And some people helped me up. They said that they were going to call the ambulance, and I said, no, I'm fine. Decided to go to my room and rest, which is the worst thing that you can do when you've had a concussion. And but luckily, I couldn't fall asleep at all. So from there, the next day I drove home. I was fine to drive. I got home, and that evening, I'll never forget. It was about 12 o'clock, midnight, and I could not rest myself. I couldn't relax enough to go to sleep. So I was a little nervous and didn't realize it at the time, but anxious as well. And by the way, I never suffered from anxiety, but I had my very first anxiety attack that evening.
What was that like?
It was horrible. Absolutely horrible. Anyone who has suffered from an anxiety attack will understand, but until you do, I can only describe it to you, but you'll never really quite understand it. Sweating profusely, heart palpitations, parts of my body went numb, nausea. I felt like I was just going to throw up, and I felt like I was dying. So at that point, I called my wife and I said, "You need to drive me to the hospital." So we check in at North York. They went through various different tests and spent a good part of that evening at the hospital to find out later that I had had an anxiety attack. So they gave me some medication for it, which I could not bring myself to taking because that caused me anxiety. I am not a big, I don't like drugs. So it was really a very difficult time for me. And somehow, I managed to get through it.
How long did this persist?
So the first, I would say, 6, 7 months, I could hardly even speak. I couldn't work because I couldn't talk. And anytime I had an anxiety attack, which would occur several times throughout the day, I needed to lay down. And it would take me about 2 to 3 hours to recover from it. So essentially, for the first 7 months, I couldn't work at all. And I didn't actually work for almost an entire year because it took that long for me to be able to recover from it. In the meantime,
what happened to your business in that time?
well, good question. I was fortunate that because of my background in technology and because of some of the experiences that I had gone through, where I explained earlier that my parents lost everything, I had built some systems into my business that automated the business and that protected it from catastrophes. And as a result, we were able to keep the business going. The employees that I had at the time continued business as usual, continued servicing our clients, continue looking for new clients. The business continued to run even though I was not involved in it for almost a year.
That is amazing. That is amazing that you, it certainly speaks to what you're doing now. And we'll get to that. But you're going through these anxieties, and you said it's like a year. How do you start to come out of this?
It was really challenging. I went through, I didn't want to get into any kinds of drugs, which, I understand why people do that. There is a need for it, but I wanted to find a healthy alternative. So I started doing acupuncture, and that actually worked really well for about 3 months. And then all of a sudden it stopped working. I don't know why. And then I attempted to replace the acupuncture with Tai Chi, which was something that was recommended to me, and that didn't help me. So I went through various different ideas on how to cope with it and how to get through it. In the end, I'll tell you, Craig, I got to a point where I needed to work. I felt that I could no longer live like this, and I had to medicate myself, and that got me through the stage of adapting to my new life. Eventually, I got out of the medication, but it helped me tremendously to recover and to get into some kind of normal lifestyle.
Now, this is a bit off of the business topic, but you mentioned that you were reluctant to take medication, and then you did. How has that affected your attitude on that?
I think that desperate measures call for desperate times, desperate I guess solutions to your problem, and everyone is different. I held off as long as I could, so that I didn't have to get it. I guess felt that I had a need for medication, but eventually I couldn't resist, and I had to find a way to cope. And so it helped me understand that everyone deals with their situations differently, and you have to do what is going to work for you. So if medication is something you need to get you by, then so be it. I think, again, you have to do what's going to work for you.
Now, so you're taking some medication, you're starting to ease yourself back into work. How much can you work?
Well, good question. We had to start slowly. You know, a brain injury is one of those things that people can't see that you're injured. It's not like breaking an arm and it's obvious you're in a cast. A brain injury is not visible to anyone, and anyone that doesn't know you and you stutter and you're speaking to them and you stutter, or you're having anxiety and you're sweating, or you're just feeling uncomfortable, they won't understand it. They won't understand what's causing that. And so it was really difficult for me because people that I didn't know didn't realize what was going on. So I had to ease into it for my own sake mostly, because certain situations that were stressful did cause some anxiety and caused me to have another panic attack, even though I was on medication. So I had to ease into it, which meant I was working about 3-4 hours a day for the first several months until I adapted.
And what else were you doing while you're starting to be able to work a little bit more? You're adjusting a little bit. What else were you doing for your own well-being?
Well, I started experimenting with different things, and one of them that really worked well for me was exercise. So I started going out for walks on a regular basis, and I was amazed how, especially walking outdoors, getting some sunlight, some fresh air, what kind of effect that had on me emotionally. It just made me feel good. It made me feel alive and energized. So I started doing that on a regular basis, every single day, going out for a walk. So that was one of the things that I experimented with. And then also I started getting into yoga. People have told me, or had told me at the time, that yoga helps tremendously with anxiety. So I tested that out and I quite liked it. So even today, I still do yoga. Another thing that was told to me that would help me tremendously was meditation. So people that have an issue with anxiety like I do, meditation helps you to relax your mind. And in fact, conditions you to control your thoughts. That's a whole concept around meditation, and to release those thoughts that are making you anxious. So meditation is part of my life and has been now for years, and it has helped me tremendously.
So eventually you get up to normal working hours. What becomes a normal working week for you?
8 hours a day, 5 days a week.
So,
Yeah.
so before this accident, you're working 80 hours a week. You were worn down. You have this terrible accident. It gives you a concussion and anxiety. And through dealing with this, you learn the importance of exercise. You learn yoga. You learn meditation. All these things that help you deal with stress in your life and make you healthier. And you go to an 80-hour work week, which I would guess gives you more time with your family.
Yes. Yes.
So how do you feel about what happened to you?
I think it was a blessing in disguise, to be honest with you. As crazy as that may sound, because my experience was terrifying. It was extremely difficult, not just for me, but for my family. My family would watch me lay there as if I was dying. And, I really couldn't do much during that period where I was recovering. So now to be able to work 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, and be able to spend more time with my family, it has brought me a lot more joy in my life, a lot more meaning. And what's amazing, Craig, is that I'm just as effective, and I'll argue that I'm actually more effective now because I'm not working the 80 hours I was working, basically feeling burnt out all the time. I am more effective now than ever before. I think more efficiently. I get things done more efficiently. I can focus much better. It's a world of difference from what I used to be.
Well, I'll tell you, in 2008, I started going to the gym with my colleagues at lunch. And I always had been reluctant to do that because I felt guilty about being away from work. And I noticed for all of us, we came back to work in the afternoon and we were like supercharged. Just taking care of your body. For me, that's been the platform my life is built on. I mean, I'm no swimsuit model, but, I do exercise regularly. During the pandemic, I'm exercising with my son, and that just has made a world of difference in how I live every day. What do you think people can get from your story?
Well, very good question. I think that what's really important is people need to take stock of where they're at in today, right, in their life in today, and realize what are the things that are working for you, what are the things that make you happy, that you like doing, and that you don't like doing, and get rid of the stuff you don't like doing, right? Because that's not serving you or anybody around you, including your family. And a lot of people don't take time to do that, and I didn't. I was guilty of that as well. When I was working 80 hours a week, I didn't have time for anything else. I didn't have time to even think. So we need to stop and think and realize what are the things that are working for us, what are the things that are not, get rid of the stuff that's not, focus on the few things, maybe 3 or 4 things that do work for you on a regular basis. Focus on that and incorporate that into a routine. And what I mean by routine, you talked about earlier, you exercise every day. And that routine is critical for making sure that you have the right mindset and the right energy. So I'll give you an example of what my routine looks like in the morning. I start my morning very early, usually at 4:35 a.m., and I spend about 20 minutes meditating. And then I exercise. I exercise for about half an hour to 40 minutes. Usually I'm swimming, but the pools are closed now, so we can't do that. So I cycle and walk. And I'll do some weightlifting to tone up as well. That's my exercise routine. I read for 30 minutes as well every single morning. And when I'm finished my routine and I shower, I finish my shower with a cold shower. And I know that sounds insane to a lot of people. It's not a comfortable thing. Even today, it's not a comfortable thing. I've been doing it for years. I'm still not used to it like you would expect, but I do it anyway. I'll tell you why I do it, because it energizes me. The energy that you get from a cold shower, you just feel pumped up. You know that feeling you mentioned earlier after you exercise? That's
Yes.
what I'm talking about. So when you have that kind of energy, you're going to feel better about yourself. You're going to feel better about the things that you're doing every single day. You're going to be much more capable of serving your customers and serving the people around you, because you have that high energy. And that's the key for me.
Now, let's just talk about this for a minute. You were at a position where you couldn't work, your life wasn't efficient, you had a tragedy. You put all these systems in this place that made your life work, and the systems you had put in place made sure your company ran even when you had a tragedy. It sounds a lot like everything that's going on in your business, that you put systems in place that mitigate tragedy, that make things more efficient, and make people's companies work better than they would.
Absolutely.
That's about it, right?
Yeah, it is. And it all starts with you, right? You have to figure these things out on your own to determine what is going to work best for you from a health perspective, not just a physical health, but also a mental health perspective. Especially in tough situations, having mental health is what is going to carry you through those difficult times. And if you don't have the skills before you get into a catastrophe or a pandemic or whatever the situation is, you're going to have a much more difficult time not only navigating through that catastrophe, but also coming out of it. And today here we are in a pandemic, and we're going to start to come out of it. Some people are not going to manage coming out of it very well at all, and those are the people that didn't prepare themselves. So it starts with yourself, but you've got to use the similar mentality and strategies into your business as a business owner. That you have to basically look at the things that are working for you in your business and the things that are not working for you. Get rid of the stuff that's not working so you can focus on the stuff that does, and then find ways to make sure that if there's a catastrophe, if there's any kind of interruption, that you will be able to manage keeping the flow, keeping things going for you, for your people, for your customers and suppliers, etc. You've got to think about that. You've got to put a plan in place and take stock of all these things. Otherwise, when things hit the fan, you're going to be stuck, and you're going to have a hard time dealing with it and coming out of it.
Well, Miguel, the things you are selling are the things that you have lived, and I can't imagine a more reliable person to go to for those things than you, because it's been your life. You have walked the things you've talked. What are the best ways for people to get a hold of you?
The best way to reach out to me is through text, and you can call that number as well, 416-658-0942. Call or text, or go to our website. We have a 24-hour chat. If you land on our website, somebody will reach out to you. And our website is vbsitservices.com. Well,
Miguel, I'm covering you up a little bit with these fonts. Thank you very much for sharing your story with us. I personally find it inspiring. We all experience hard times in our life. That's no exception to anybody. But it really says something about you that you took the bad things and turned it into really good things in your life and in your business and in the services that you offer other people. So, I think you are really to be commended, and it's a pleasure talking to you, and it's a pleasure knowing you.
Thank you, Craig. I really appreciate that. And I'll just leave it with one more thought, which is that in the worst of times that you are challenged in life, something good always comes out of it, always. And you've just got to be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. That's the key.
And that, my friend, is what makes you a business hero. And that's it for today's show. Miguel, thank you very much. It's such a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you again.
The Business Heroes wants to hear your story. Contact me at craig@colbyvision.net. I guarantee your story will sound epic with this cool music underneath it. Colbyvision can help you find and share your story. Writing, video, we do it all. We can also show you how to do your own simple videos and teach you how to do interviews for a podcast. Thanks to Dave White for the editing, Tim Vesely for the music, and Kevin Francisco for the graphics. And thanks for watching The Business Heroes. We'll see you next time for another exciting adventure.